Testing. Can you hear me? 1, 2, test. 1, 2, test. Let me know if you could hear me. All right, yeah. I'm having a USB connection issue to the mic. This has been a thing for a while now, so I'll probably time to buy a new mic. But now you guys could hear me, so let me reintroduce myself. So good afternoon, everybody. It's David Schlotthauer here in the home weather office, and this is an urgent pop-up live update session for the California region, as we are about to deal with some of the strongest wind event that we have seen in some areas in 15 years, perhaps for Southern California. And wait until you see some of the graphics that I'm about to bring up here. And I'm fully aware about that snowstorm for the Northeast, for the Eastern Seaboard, and for the Deep South. We will try to fit in a separate live stream of that this afternoon or evening right before I go to work if I have time. But this really did pop up, and I feel like it is best that we do talk about California because, well, we don't ever talk about the West very often, and people seem to think I only cover the Eastern Seaboard or the Midwest, but not this go around. This is specifically for California, Nevada area, as there's going to be some extreme wind damage that is expected to develop, especially tomorrow night, all the way into Wednesday, and maybe another one of these big wind events coming up for the latter part of the week into the weekend. Yeah, California is entering a really windy pattern. So here's a look at the geocolor satellite imagery across much of the Intermountain West here of Nevada and California. You can see, yep, there is some snow on the mountains. That's always nice to see. And surprisingly, there might be a little bit of snow with this weather system, mainly only for the Sierra Mountain range, limited to just a few areas like the peaks of the mountains will get additional snowfall, maybe about a couple of inches or so, but that's really about it with that system. But this is going to be generating some very strong winds, and you can already start seeing offshore flow developing on the imagery as we get surface high pressure developing at the surface as we get this northwesterly flow over much of California. And then eventually this is going to turn northerly by tonight and then more northeasterly by tomorrow. And this is going to set up for some very strong damaging winds that will be capable of hurricane-like or tornadic-like wind damage in some areas. So with that being said, here's a look at the weather alerts page here from Pivotal Weather. And yeah, there are not just a fire weather warning for Southern California, but there is a particularly dangerous situation of a fire weather warning issued for the higher elevations, and I think it's for all of Los Angeles County that is underneath this PDS red flag warning that just came out just about 30 minutes ago. That's the most serious red flag warning you could actually get, and that's what's being issued here for Southern California. So if you're in Ventura, if you're in Calabasas, if you are in the Santa Clarita area, if you're in Pasadena, Covina down here, Riverside as well, you're under the bleak of this. And then, of course, there's a high wind warning just about anywhere. Even so, there is, it's not shown up here. The most serious warning is usually overlaid from the least aggressive one. And so there is high wind warnings over here in the Los Angeles metro area, with high wind warnings that are now in effect for Rancho Cucamonga. If you are in San Bernardino, if you're down here in, say, Santa Ana, if you're down here in, like, say, near Palmdale, those area, not Palmdale, Palm Springs, that's what I meant to say, under high wind warnings, and even Los Angeles and the Great Basin here of southeastern California under high wind warnings. And this is not just a microscopic wind event where just the mountains get the winds and the canyons get the winds. I'll actually give you all a demonstration on what is going to happen here. Not to mention, I'm really, really surprised there are no high wind warnings out for the Sierra, mother lobe of the Sierra here, these mountainous terrain areas. That's because there's going to be wind gusts in excess of 100 miles an hour in some of the higher elevations here from the easterly direction. So you're going to start getting these easterly winds, that the drainage type effect, where we get downsloping wind, then the wind comes down the valley here from the northerly direction and then kind of jumps over from the northeasterly direction over the Bay Area, similar to the Santa Ana winds, where we are going to get these northeasterly winds here over the metropolitan area of the Bay Area and Southern California. So this is a fairly widespread event, and even so, that this is only impacting a small area of the United States. Remember, let's not forget how populated California actually is. I've been here 29 years and still here today, and Southern Nevada as well as northwestern Arizona gonna see some strong winds, okay? And it's not just that. Now, what you don't see is marine products, and that's why I wanted to show you and illustrate this. Let me see if I can zoom in. Okay, it's not going to. This should help a little bit, and then we'll get to our graphics. So you know about the high wind warning, and yeah, see, it actually is overlaid here because this is a PDS event for Burbank, Los Angeles, Santa Clarita, Oxnard, Malibu. If you are in, say, the Santa Barbara area too, getting those winds too also. But look what we have here. This purple area, that's a storm warning product, marine product for the ocean. And this is not the first time we have seen this product get issued from the National Weather Service in Los Angeles. This is, I think, the second time in a really meso area getting a storm warning. And then, of course, away from that, the winds will be much lighter, well, light enough to where there won't be gale force. More like small craft advisories are out. But there is going to be some big time waves hitting Avalon, the little island there of Avalon, some of these buoys. We could have waves over 15 feet because of this northeasterly offshore wind event that really gets underway by tomorrow and into the day on Wednesday. So now let's back it out and let's show you the graphics here that the National Weather Service put out in Southern California. Let me get rid of my face because that kind of covers the rest of the image. What we are seeing here is a life-threatening, okay, and I want to make it clear here, a life-threatening and destructive windstorm. I mean, there's a couple of words here. Life-threatening says it all, and it's destructive windstorm. It's actually a windstorm created by the wind, and this is an extreme event. That's what the title of this video actually is, and what the title or what the headline is of the thumbnail, because there's going to be extreme winds here, and we could have peak wind gusts over 80 plus miles an hour. There are a few areas we could have wind gusts in excess of 120 miles an hour, enough to really, really bring down a lot of power lines. We could have actually complete devastation in some isolated areas, and I'll show you that here on the wind forecast. But this is a serious event, and look at the headline, or look at the key points. Stay indoors, and the severe thunderstorm warning here, away from windows. Doesn't that sound familiar? Like severe thunderstorm wind damage is anticipated with this, and expect widespread power outages with this windstorm as well. So Simi Valley, San Fernando, Burbank, Calabasas, Hollywood, the Hollywood Hills, Santa Clarita, and of course the San Gabriel mountain range, and Pasadena, Glendora. I am from Glendora in Southern California. Of course, I moved up here when I was about a year old, so I've been technically up where I'm at for 28 years, but I was down there for a year when I was first born, and never felt or never been through a Santa Ana wind event. Maybe I'll have to go down there if I get enough money. Maybe I'll have to store a weather chase and go down there for one of these events. Maybe next year, if my family actually allows me. They look over their child and they don't want them to travel very far places by themselves. So maybe I'll have to coordinate something with that eventually, but not this year, unfortunately. And this is coming too late. Actually, I could make it down there in theory, but I don't want to miss any school. If I didn't have any school, then that would be possible. But yeah, big time destructive extreme wind event that is anticipated here. And this is also another graphic from the National Weather Service in Los Angeles. And this was updated, I guess this was updated yesterday. Wait, yeah, this was updated yesterday, or should be updated today, but it covers the same thing that we talked about. Widespread damaging winds and low relative humidities will cause fire starts to rapidly grow in size, all right? And again, most of LA and Ventura counties over here, okay, and many areas could have wind gusts over 80 miles an hour. So even down at the surface, you could have wind gusts 60 to 70, maybe 80 miles an hour, and some isolated areas up to and over 100 miles an hour. In other words, this could truly be the strongest offshore wind event since 2011 for Southern California, since December 1st of 2011. And this could result in widespread down trees and power lines, rapid starts, and exploding fire danger too as well. So any fires that start in this environment will grow very fast, out of control, like we saw in Malibu nearly a month ago, where that fire just took off without a problem. It just blew up and it just lost control. So that is the concern here. Extreme fire risk is issued for this area, not elevated and not critical at all. A level 3 extreme fire risk. Okay, so this is to be taken extremely, extremely, extremely seriously. In fact, I would not even be surprised if evacuations ahead of this windstorm are already getting underway. I don't know if they do that with a PDS fire weather warning. I'm sure they do. That evacuations, pre-evacuations are getting underway just in case if fires do start, they could actually evacuate people ahead of time instead of doing it last minute. Because, yeah, fires could travel over 30 or 40 miles an hour, okay, downwind from where the wind is blowing from. In other words, if a fire is 40 miles away, it can get to your location in about an hour. Okay, so moving at 40 miles an hour is no joke. So now let's take a look here at the weather pattern setup, okay? And what we're witnessing here is a classic inside slider event where we have an amplifying ridge over the Pacific Northwest. You can see these wind barbs. They're doing this and they come down out of the northerly direction. But the problem here is we have a little bit of a amplifying jet streak on the back side of this trough. So we do have a little bit of a trough here in the 500 millibar layer, which is 18,000 feet above the surface. But watch what happens to this trough as it comes on down across over the west. It really gets amplified because what is going on here is this ridge is amplifying. It's growing in intensity over the Pacific Northwest. This is a very dry wind, no rainfall for any part of the west. All right, and Justin is going to join, our great guy. So we'll wait until he joins here.
Hello.
Hey, Justin, I'm doing my quick briefing here, and then we'll talk more about this wind event together on the stream and answer anyone's questions, okay?
You got it.
So what we have here again is this jet streak that really amplifies it. We go from this all the way to this. This is a very, very highly amplified wave pattern where we have really strong amplified ridge over the Pacific Northwest. We have a deepening, rapidly intensifying cutoff, well, not really a cutoff low, could become one. We'll see about that. Over Southern California. California. Usually when we get these inside sliders, they come on down and then they kind of do this and they move into, say, the deep south or the high plains of the United States. More famously known as Colorado Rocky lows can form off of these weather systems. But in this case, this is going to get buckled by the overall flow pattern. This is what we call a very meridional amplified wave pattern over across the west. And look what ends up happening. This is a very intense, pronounced mid-level jet over Southern California, Santa Barbara area, moving into Los Angeles. And as this moves on through, this is 4 a.m. on Wednesday. This is a destructive offshore wind. And it's not just at the surface that we will be looking at the winds, but even in the mid-levels, this is perpendicular to these mountain ranges like the San Gabriel mountain range, the Hollywood Hills and Mountains, as well as the San Fernando, Santa Barbara mountains down here, the Tehachapis, really perpendicular here to the overall setup. And what this is going to allow is actually significant, maybe a significant mountain wave event. And we'll explain what mountain waves here are in a second on our graphic that we'll bring up. And this is pretty substantial here. This is a 100 knot. Actually, it peaks at 115 knots almost. That is exceptional. Pretty exceptional, unheard of for Southern California here. For 7 p.m. on Tuesday, this is local time, 7 p.m. Tuesday, Pacific Standard Time, all the way into Wednesday morning. When we look at the 700 millibar flow, doesn't seem as strong, but still we are looking at 54 knots at 10,000 feet. But of course, because of the mountain wave event, these do get amplified. Actually, let me bring up our meso model. That shows it a little bit better. Yeah, you can see it right here. It really amplifies, and those are winds of 80 knots over the higher elevations of the San Gabriel Mountains. 80 knots, that's sustained wind of 100 miles an hour, or maybe just over that. Then 850 millibar winds are even stronger. We'll get to a more of a detailed graphic zoomed in view here in a second, but I also wanted to show you here too with what's going to happen. With the gradient, what we call our pressure gradient force. And there's many ways you can look at this through the pressure gradient tool that we will bring up here in a second. But the KSFO to KWMC gradient is going to be pretty tight, on the order of about 10 to 14 millibars. And the KLAX to the KWMC gradient is possibly going to reach about 18 millibars between these two locations. And that is tight enough to get some hurricane force wind gusts, well over that actually, near sustained hurricane force winds atop these mountains and through the narrowing canyons and passes. And this is going to be the thing for a while. And then once we get a little break, I guess, right about in here on Wednesday, we might have another intense, not as intense offshore wind event on Thursday. And then we will have to see about this one for, say, next weekend. It could also be another strong one. It depends on the orientation of this high and where any low pressure can set up. But in the short term, this is a very classic setup here. A 1008, 1006 millibar low over southeastern California and southern Arizona, and a 1000, possibly, yeah, getting up there near 1045 millibars. It's a very tight gradient between Winnemucca all the way down into Arizona. So this is going to allude to some pretty hefty damaging winds that we have not seen at least in 14, maybe even 15 years, since December 1st, 2011. That's the last time I could think of any significant wind event down there that took down a lot of power lines, a lot of trees came down. So it's been a while for SoCal to have something of this magnitude. And when you start hearing the word mountain wave event, that gets concerning. So I'm going to actually bring up Google Earth here, and I'm going to telestrate here, and I'm going to show you all with how these winds actually work here in Southern California. So we're just going to use some of the taller mountains for reference. This looks to be Baldy. This is San Gabriel Canyon, I believe. That's what this canyon here is. So imagining, let's just zoom out and look at the synopsis of one given area. There's Eaglewood, there's Hollywood Hills, kind of over here, Fortana, San Bernardino. So our winds are going to be doing something like this. They're going to be coming in out of this direction. This is perpendicular roughly to the San Gabriel Mountains, and also down here, San Bernardino mountain chain as well. And what you see here is going to be, think of geostrophic surface high pressure, not really seen on models very well unless you look at the meso models, but there will be a locally intense high pressure cell that develops over here on the windward side of the San Gabriel Mountains. So like the side of the facing of the mountain that faces to the north. So like Victorville, and then you get actually lower geostrophic low pressure on the leeward side, which is why you get these winds that come up and over, and they could accelerate at enormous speeds. So let's kind of do this. So what you end up seeing here is the winds come up and over, right? And then they could come through these canyons and channel through. We're going to have some colder air, adiabatic flow through some of these canyons. So you can kind of think that the winds are going to be accelerating pretty at a pretty fierce speed. I don't know if that's even a word, but at a pretty fierce speed, with winds that come through these canyons well in excess of 80, maybe 90 miles an hour. Doesn't surprise me if some of the windiest prone areas, we could have wind gusts up and over 120 miles an hour in isolated windiest prone canyon channel-like regions. So that's going to be the thing. But also, when we do a side view of these mountains here, let's see if I can do a good job at this. I'm hoping I'm doing good at showing kind of a 3D view of the telestration here. I'm sure Justin G is getting me good credit of this. So what's going to happen here from a side angle is we talked about kind of what the winds will do when they kind of come through these canyons. But on a side view, these winds are going to come up like this, like they have to, right? Because it's hitting a solid surface. Those are the mountains. And then they come on down, and they are so strong. When they come down, they actually create mountain waves. And for that, let me zoom in at a more steeper slope, like right here. So what you end up seeing is and it's not just the canyon winds that will be a thing, but these winds will be very strong atop because of the orientation of the wind field that we will be looking at on models. And again, it's about the overlap. Now, if this was one of those cases where we had northerly or northeast or more northerly flow aloft and then northeasterly flow in the low levels, that would not be as conducive of mountain wave events like the one that we're going to see. But because we're going to have the overlapping of the different layers here of intense winds, this is going to create some pretty intense, formidable mountain wave activity. So when you think of it like this, the wind starts up really high and then it comes down like this on the side, on the leeward side, because we're talking about leeward, the west or southern slopes here of the San Gabriel Mountains, right? So the wind comes down like this, and it doesn't only just hit the surface like this, but it can go up a little bit and create mountain waves, what we call Rossby wave activity or mountain barrier wave activity, okay? And what you end up seeing is then the winds could be strongest here, and then they go up. They might not be very strong over here over the Ontario airport. Then this is just an example. We'll be looking at the models here in a second. But it may be one of those instances where you may be right here and you may have, say, 15 to 20 mile an hour winds where I have this area circled. Let me actually make this a little thicker, like right over here. But let's just say you're right amongst the foot or the base of one of these wave events that show up. And let's just say the winds are like, this comes down with full force, like over I-10 or highway or freeway 210. I should know this already. I'm from SoCal. And then you could have winds in the circled areas here in the metro area that could reach speeds sustained of 30 to 50 miles an hour, maybe even close to 60 miles an hour. And yet, the yellow circled area, you may have winds of, say, 20 to 30 miles an hour. And then on the other side of that, you may have another batch of wind over here exceeding maybe 20 to 50 miles an hour, maybe 30 to 50 at least. So it's in fluid dynamics where when you get a tall mountain like this, and let me illustrate this again one last time. So we'll just draw some tall mountains. That's probably not a good way to do it, but you get your winds that come up like this and they come down, then it just ripples. And so what you end up seeing is if there was enough moisture here, you get lenticular clouds on the crest. Right like here, like right here, you get lenticular cloud formation. And that's a illustration of a mountain wave event. And models don't do very good, and they don't handle those equations very well on a finer scale. And so that's why using the HRRR, using the NAM, need to be taken with a grain of salt. With a grain of salt. Because these can go underestimated or unexpected in such a way, like I said, some of these windiest prone areas, you may have a period where you don't have damaging wind gusts at extreme levels, and there may be a period where you get a period of maybe lasting an hour or two, maybe up to 80 plus miles an hour. So, yeah. How are you doing, Justin, by the way?
You're doing great.
Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. If I'm doing great from a huge expert here in this kind of field, means I got my facts down right. So this is the HRRR, and let's move through. So when people talk about the extreme winds, that's not going to happen tonight. We're going to see winds at advisory criteria tonight over the more isolated in nature, but those winds will become more widespread throughout the day tomorrow. So you can see here by 5 a.m., notice, say, like Beverly Hills. I love the Hollywood names that SoCal has to bring up here. West Hollywood will be like Hollywood tomorrow, like the Hollywood Hills will be pretty good, but not so Hollywoody like for filming tomorrow night. Santa Monica, not much wind, but look at how more isolated this is. So yeah, you may wake up in Ontario with maybe a southerly wind and like, where's our Santa Ana wind event yet? Right? And then areas that are prone to this, like Futana, Rialto, as well as San Bernardino, yeah, you may wake up to winds over 30 miles an hour tomorrow with gusts over 50, maybe 60 miles an hour. Let's go through the day, and it's really going to be tomorrow afternoon when they become more widespread, but the higher elevation of the winds don't get much stronger, more in that range of, say, 25 to 40 miles an hour. But it's going to be tomorrow night when things get very dangerous. We're talking extreme wind event here for beyond about the 10 o'clock time frame. And look at this. And Justin, you're seeing this for yourself on my stream. Mm-hmm. This is pretty serious. I mean, some of these windiest prone areas, like, let's see, Rancho Cucamonga, we got, what is that, a university, right? It looks like a university of a college somewhere north of 210. Look at these sustained winds, 50 sustained winds there, particularly part of those canyon winds and a mountain wave event that sets up. And this continues through much of the day. Not really illustrated here. It doesn't look like those winds are that strong, but there's different ways we can look at this. I could bring up Ventusky if I wanted to. But yeah, this is serious winds. And when this comes in the form of wind gusts, yeah, I mean, this is no joke at all. So like, say 11 o'clock at night, that's when the gusts get very dangerous. Some of these areas in the 70s with wind gusts. Malibu, by the way, I'm pretty familiar with the topography of that area. It wouldn't surprise me if we get peak wind gusts in Malibu that are not being shown well. Actually, Malibu is over here. I always think Malibu is actually where Zuma Beach is, that support dune area, but it's actually east of there. There could be wind gusts on the order of 65, maybe 95 miles an hour. And even further west than that could possibly reach 100. Doesn't surprise me. So these winds are pretty dangerous. And if that's not enough, there is one area on this map, Justin, that I wanted to show you. These are wind gusts, by the way. So like, man, these are some hard little peaks to read here. Ontario Peak, Turtle Peak, that is.
Yeah, those are the San Bernardino National Mountains.
Yeah. Winds gusting there. Well, even at the surface here, that was a 90, I think I thought I saw. Yeah, 91 mile an hour wind gust. That's, and you might say 91, but they're saying 100. We got to understand the HRRR and the NAM are not resolving the mountain wave event as good as what we might think. Remember, a model is numerical term, so it's a lot of the complex equations that the models have a hard time resolving on a very, very fine scale. If you wanted to generate such a fine scale model of like, say, a 1/10 of a mile resolution, you would need some serious computing power, and you couldn't go out beyond maybe 6 hours out, because it would generate so much heat and computing power that it would overload the supercomputers. So that's why we are not there yet with our technology with hyper microscopic resolution grid spacing, where we could get the exact details of, oh, this area is going to see 105 miles an hour, but a 1/10 of a mile away may see 40 or 50 miles an hour, if that makes sense. All right, so let's actually go to our sustained winds and let's look at different layers of the atmosphere via our HRRR. We'll use that. Actually, let me use the NAM because it's actually finer at lower levels. You can see, let's go to 2,500 feet. And look at these winds. 3,000 foot level winds, Justin, sustained here at 90 miles an hour. Over Azusa, over Glendale, Burbank, San Fernandino. This is that mountain wave that we will need to watch for. If we get, again, that acceleration, that momentum transfer down to the surface, you could have some huge wind gusts that are enough to actually cause like tornado-like damage. Simi Valley, Thousand Oaks, Calabasas, sustained winds at 3,000 feet in the 70s. So that's how you get your gusts between 70 to 80 miles an hour. Let's go to 5,000 feet, same thing. But especially right here on the leeward side of the San Gabriel Mountains, still, even at 5,000 feet, 90 miles an hour, if that's not enough, 80 mile an hour winds sustained at 6,400 feet. And it just goes on and on and on. And even at 14,000 feet, we're seeing, so very perpendicular here with those winds. And even down to, say, 2,000 feet, specifically over the San Fernando Valley. Yeah, that's 72 mile an hour sustained winds at 2,000 feet. And if I get an elevation check there, that valley is roughly about 800 feet, 1,000 feet above sea level. So this is looking about 1,000 feet above that, and seeing winds that are in the 70s sustained. You would certainly get sustained winds in the 50s and 60s sustained in the San Fernando Valley, perhaps. Around big buildings, though, it might come down a lot more. But yeah, look at this, 46 mile an hour sustained winds, even at the very surface there. So that's going to be the concern for significant, serious wind damage. On the order, and Justin could further tell us, we don't see a wind event like this very often.
No, we certainly do not. And I think the last wind event that is comparable to this would be the 2011 wind event, which caused significant damage across a large swath of Southern California, especially up in Pasadena. And the National Weather Service has been stating that not only does this event look synoptically similar to the 2011 event, but the wind speeds look extremely similar as well. And the areas that are going to be affected look very similar. So it's definitely on the order of that 2011 event, which was a historically strong wind event for the entire Southern California region.
And you know what makes this interesting too? That's the wind event. I was living in the Bay Area, and I remember that wind event. I could still remember it very vaguely of this day. I was living in the East Bay around Fremont area, and I remember we lost a lot of trees, and I watched a few webcams at the time. They were not really good at, they were good at the time, but they probably look terrible now because of technology. But I remember telephone, or not telephone, but like straight poles, Justin, were like rubber bands moving and swaying vigorously, and at times some of those poles would even fall over. Gas station roofs completely demolished and off. Yeah, I mean, we are looking at something pretty similar to that. And if I can remember that event pretty clearly, Justin, that goes to tell you that was a pretty historic event.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Another event that could be compared to this was I believe it was 1997 windstorm in Southern California. That one was also particularly dangerous and damaging. Somebody wanted us to mention where the PDS red flag warning is in effect for, so I can actually read that out because National Weather Service LA just issued it.
Let me bring it up too, though, so that way they can follow along.
Yeah, as of about 20 minutes ago. Let me send you a link. I have the...
I have it. Nope, I have it already. Yep. It says Perfect. Urgent.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so...
You can read it, I can read it. You do what you want to do.
All right. So this is a particularly dangerous situation. PDS. All right. That's the highest level of fire weather product you can get. Red flag warning in effect noon Tuesday. Well, actually, it's a fire weather storm, but it's up there. Effect noon Tuesday until 4 p.m. Wednesday due to damaging north to northeast winds and low humidities for the following areas. San Gabriel Mountains, which we talked about, San Gabriel and San Fernando Valleys. Okay, so again, that mountain wave, that the base of those intense winds could mix all the way down. You don't need to be on the side of a tall mountainside to get that, like on the south-facing sides of these tall mountains. All you need to be is just shortly downstream of it, and that's what you get. This will likely be a life-threatening, all right? The word life-threatening, Justin, destructive and widespread windstorm. Yeah, that's pretty serious wording when you think about it. All right. And they even mentioned it again here to repeat. This is a particularly dangerous situation, PDS, for portions of Los Angeles and Ventura counties. And they say here, a very strong, widespread, and destructive north to northeast windstorm will bring extremely critical fire, could be perhaps extremely critical to extreme fire weather conditions to many areas of Los Angeles and eastern Ventura counties Tuesday afternoon into the early Wednesday afternoon. This, they mentioned it like 3 times, Justin, in their whole text. This is a particularly dangerous situation, PDS red flag warning event in many areas with the combination of very strong upper level wind support, tightening offshore pressure gradients, the KLAX Daggett peaking at negative 8 millibars, moderate cold air advection. The strongest winds with this event are expected to be Tuesday afternoon into early Wednesday afternoon. Wind widespread damaging wind gusts of 50 to 80 miles an hour are likely. The San Gabriel Mountains, the San Suna Mountains, and foothills of the San Gabriel, San Fernando Valleys will likely see areas of destructive wind gusts between 80 and 100 miles an hour. Due to the very strong upper-level wind support and high risk for strong mountain wave activity, typical wind-sheltered areas such as portions of LA Basin and San Gabriel Valley, the strong winds will likely result in widespread down power lines, trees, as well as widespread power outages. Justin, look it. They literally referred to with what I was saying. This will likely be the most destructive windstorm seen since 2011 windstorm that did extensive damage to Pasadena and nearby foothills of the San Gabriel Valley. Any communities along Highway 118 210 corridors will be at greatest risk for comparable wind damage. Humidity values are also expected to lower to between 10 and 15% in many areas by Tuesday afternoon and evening, potentially lowering into the single digits in some areas by late Tuesday night into Wednesday. Wow, dude. The offshore winds are now expected to arrive early Tuesday morning, resulting in, areas in a red flag warning, especially during the PDS timeframe, will have increased risk for large fires with very rapid fire spread, possibly as fast, and Justin, this is my estimate, as fast as 40 plus miles an hour. Extreme fire behavior and long range spotting, while a longer duration of strong winds and red flag warning conditions is expected to be focused across Los Angeles and Ventura counties, there is now expected to be a shorter duration of a red flag warning conditions across the mountains of Santa Barbara County and County Tuesday and a Wednesday. Longer duration red flag warnings are now in effect for much of Los Angeles, Ventura counties Tuesday through Thursday, with fire weather watches in effect Thursday night into Friday. Golly word, Justin.
Yeah, you don't see that wording from NWSLA very often. And I will say that this is our third, and I'm a Southern California person, so I'm just gonna keep referring to this as our because I'm down here too. But we've had two PDS red flag warnings this season before this event.
Oh,
And
okay,
I
that's
can
right,
tell
yeah.
you that this is much stronger wording than any of the other ones that we got. Definitely, like the fact that they're directly comparing it to a historically strong wind event, in which is that 2011 Pasadena wind event, it really says something. Yeah, National Weather Service LA, it does not use this kind of wording very often, and they are definitely doing the right thing by using it, because this could be a historically strong wind event as well.
And you can see the animation of what those winds look like at 1 a.m. on Wednesday. These are wind gusts, by the way. Some of these areas, again, will have winds exceeding 90, 100-ish miles an hour. And you can see that offshore flow, boy. And look at this, Justin, even over the waters here, gusts maybe up to 70 to 80 miles an hour.
Absolutely. I do want to also mention that the National Weather Service in San Diego has issued now a PDS red flag warning as well. Theirs is going to be from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Wednesday. A period of widespread strong winds accompanied by very dry air and critically dry fuels will result in dangerous fire weather conditions. Any new fire ignition in these areas will likely have very dangerous wildfire spread and behavioral with great difficulty and containment that could impact life and property. This PDS red flag warning is for the inland Orange County, the Santa Ana Mountains, Inland Empire, and San Bernardino Mountain foothills.
Yeah. So, man, it's all in Southern California, the whole metro area pretty much at this point.
Yeah, the PDS red flag warning is for pretty much all of LA County other than the Antelope Valley. And that is all of Metro Los Angeles is in it.
Boy, do I rarely say this. Please be safe out there, Justin. Are they gonna be closing schools down, like especially with the strongest winds in those I mean, winds will be destructive pretty much in widespread, but in particularly the leeward side of the mountain range, like the San Gabriel Mountains and the Hollywood Mountains hills, I'm sure that schools will have to be closed either tomorrow or on Wednesday.
They are not. I mean, I can only speak for myself. I am in one of those mentioned areas that are particularly damaging. My school is going to be open, and I would expect that with the rest of LA schools. We've seen wind events before, and they tend not to close for weather down here. So
interesting. Wow. Well, since schools are in session though, I'm sure many students could be late because of fallen trees. Well, if your road's closed, you have to find an alternate route. Now, since we talked about Southern California, I wanted to talk about my area really quickly because those winds too. Let's go to tonight here, starting at midnight. These winds too for Northern California, which I do not know why the National Weather Service in Sacramento or in Reno has not issued a high wind warning for the high mountains of the Sierra, because winds could gust over 100 miles an hour for these locations too. These downsloping winds, and you can see how they accelerate. But also there will be wind gusts in the valley that are pretty strong too. Nothing like Southern California, of course, but like still in the 35 to 50 mile an hour range. That will bring down power lines and trees. And even for the Bay Area, there will be isolated areas that wind gusts could reach well in excess of, say, about 30 to 50 miles an hour in some of the isolated areas. But especially, look at how this all develops tomorrow. In the valley, these north winds, these downsloping winds, even over the Bay Area, offshore flow is anticipated. Even in Modesto, could have gusts over 40 miles an hour tomorrow based on the HRRR model. And still those winds could gust over 30 to 40 miles an hour. But look at some of these isolated areas right here. That is some pretty intense downsloping easterly wind. But especially for Southern California. So this is pretty widespread in a California sense, that not only Southern California gets it, but also in Northern California. And most importantly, too, look at Arizona and also New Mexico. Easterly flow here, too. So, yeah, I would say pretty widespread.
Absolutely. And there are going to be road closures, just as an FYI for any of my fellow Southern California people. There are going to be road closures that are going to take place between Tuesday and Wednesday. Caltrans District 7 has already announced that Topanga Canyon Boulevard will be closed from 10 a.m. Tuesday to 6 p.m. Friday. I would expect the same to go for other areas. They've also mentioned that overnight closures are happening on US 101 in Encino, I-405 on Sepulveda Pass, as well as I-170 on the PCH in Long Beach. Those are likely just lane closures, not the entire freeway. And that's also for utility work. But the canyon passes, I would assume, are going to be shut down probably for at least 24 to 48 hours.
And do residents live on that road at all? That's the question, because if they live on that road, then I'm sure there will be evacuation orders out for those areas.
They actually they don't issue like preemptive evacuations. They only do that for rain risks like mudslides. For fire risks, they wait until a fire actually begins before they evacuate.
Okay. All right. So but those roads that are closed that you mentioned, people do live on those roads though.
People do live on these roads. The highway closures I mentioned, I don't know why they put it in the same graphic. Those are for utility work, so those should be back open tomorrow. But Topanga Canyon Boulevard should be shut down for this entire duration of this event. I would expect the same probably to go for like Tahunga Canyon and some of those other canyon passes up near like Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, and into the Angeles National Forest.
Wow. Unbelievable. Not only that, though, Justin, for my area, too, we're going to get our fair share of wind on the NAM. The NAM is more aggressive with sustained winds and wind gusts than the HRRR, which is quite alarming because usually the HRRR is more aggressive with those winds. But especially like tonight, wind gusts on the west side of the valley could reach 50 to 55 miles an hour, and some of the higher elevations of the Bay Area could have wind gusts exceeding possibly 55 to close to 60 miles an hour. So, yeah, it's pretty widespread.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just looking at the non-master HRRR runs right now, like 23Z HRRR. It's like an uptrend already from 18Z, so I'm going to be very interested to see what the 0Z HRRR does. The wrap for 21Z uptrended, and I would probably assume that the HRRR is going to as well because they're pretty
And
much
you're using Weather Bell, right?
pivotal.
Oh, you're using Pivotal. Okay, because I got the 22Z on windy.com, so that's kind of delayed, I guess. I need to see
Mhm.
this. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's a minor uptrend, but it's an uptrend nonetheless.
Oh gosh. I bet you're nervous, aren't you, Justin?
I mean, I live in a non-fire prone area,
Good.
in Metro LA, so I'm not too worried. But I have friends who live in very fire prone areas, and I am worried for them.
Let me see if it did uptrend. Yeah, this goes out to this is 8 in the morning. Oh wow. There is a almost an 80-mile-an-hour wind max.
Yeah, and I mean you can just compare that to the 18Z run. You'll see that it's quite an uptrend from that.
Let's see. Let's go over to that. Oh shoot, yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, definitely an uptrend. Yeah, that's bad. That's really bad. So, yeah, this is gonna be a big nasty wind event. Big wind event for sure. Extreme. Any questions, anybody? Any questions that you may have for me or Justin at all? Because I'm hoping to make another live stream here for the. Well, let's see. If I might just do a video today because I have like 3.5. Wait, hold on. Oh no. I could try uploading it in the evening, the video. I'll do a video update then, but I'll have to end this literally by 4:45 or so for that. Hey, Dawson. This would be catastrophic. Is Oh yeah, if there was a fire, it's a firestorm. It would be a firestorm.
The great news about these events, guys, is unlike a tornado outbreak or another type of severe weather outbreak, fire weather is a controllable weather. If there's no starts, there are no fires. So almost all wildfires are human related. So, I mean, tell your friends who live in Southern California to be extra, extra cautious tomorrow. If there's all the wind, all the relative humidity, and no fires, nothing's going to happen. So, you just got to remember that, and you got to really be careful with any ignition sources throughout tomorrow, the next day, and really the rest of the week.
But if there are any ignition sources from a human, get ready to evacuate. Get ready. Would it be possible that there may be a fire NATO somewhere? Good question, Craig. What are your thoughts on that, Justin?
Fire NATO? I mean, it depends. There could be, but that's a very like we'll discuss that when the fire starts. You can't get a fire NATO without a fire, and I mean like it doesn't really matter. 90-mile-per-hour winds are gonna push it fast enough, so a little fire whirl isn't gonna really make a difference. But any like real like fire NATO like connected to a supercell like we saw with that Northern California fire a couple months ago, no, nothing like that.
That was extraordinary. Okay,
Yeah.
Sam is saying I've got my barbecue ready.
Yeah, he's just joking around. Anyone got any gender reveal parties planned? That's a pretty famous story. Somebody started a giant wildfire with a gender reveal party.
Oh my gosh. Oh, it's fine, Sam. I know you're joking around, but please. You do not want to be the suspect. You do not want to be a suspect, I promise you, because yeah, if you're caught, it's a problem.
But yeah, for you folks in Southern California, if I were to just call out a couple areas that I'm particularly concerned about, it's going to be the west side of Topanga Canyon. So like the Brentwood, Pacific Palisades area. If you're in that area, I would be really, really cautious and making sure that you have a plan to evacuate. Again, there's a much higher chance than not that nothing is going to start and you'll just get strong winds and no fire. But should a fire start up in that Topanga Canyon, it's going to be difficult for that fire to be stopped. Another area I am concerned about is up in the Lopez and Cagle Canyons, up near Tahunga Canyon. That area is known for having just extremely, extremely dangerous fire behavior during Santa Ana wind events. And like we've mentioned, this wind event is significantly stronger than anything we've seen probably in the past 14 to 15 years. Another area that I would be worried about is if you are on the western side of the San Gabriel Mountains, of course. David's mentioned this a lot. If anywhere is going to have the strong winds, it's going to be those areas, especially with mountain wave impacts. We saw during the Camp Fire up in Paradise, California in 2018, along with the Lahaina fire in Hawaii last year, that mountain waves actually caused those fires to spread at a much more rapid rate of spread. So those are going to be the areas that I would be really, really watching out, especially if a fire starts. Again, much better chance than not that you're not going to have to evacuate, because there's a better chance than not that a fire will not start. But should one start, it's going to be hard to stop.
Oh, yeah, very hard. And especially Santa winds will taper off to some level, to a much lower level on Wednesday, but maybe that offshore wind will continue, and then maybe more additional wind events for the latter part of this week and then into the weekend. So any fire that starts, it's game over. Because once you try to get it contained, like say on Wednesday afternoon, Thursday, then we get another offshore wind event. Any smoldering that happens, you can get embers that glow, warm up, and then hit something that's very ignitable, and then poof, you get the same fire that just went from being pretty much contained to now getting out of control. But yeah, I want to make it clear to those that are watching, though, that models don't do a very good job with a mountain wave kind of event. So you'd be very surprised. Again, living like right here, you get these downsloping winds. You're just tuning in. You're going to get the strongest winds like right here. And then, actually, let me draw that a little bit better. So this is how it goes. So you get your winds that come down to the surface, not going to hit 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts over 210. They'll probably drop off a little bit due to some frictional, due to buildings and trees, but still going to be strong. And then they might come up a little bit over the airport, or could reach the airport and then come back down. So you get this whole ripply kind of effect downstream of the mountains where the wind is blowing from too. And when you're at the base of these mountain wave events, you can get wind gusts over 70, 80, maybe 90 miles an hour. But then like here, over the airport, for an example, you might get, actually that's the airport. So I barely could see that. It's blurry on my end. You may
David, I'm going to head off now.
All right.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
See ya. So, yeah, I'm going to head off here soon too, because I need to work on my next video. So where you get the, like of a ridge-like wave that happens, like over a given area, like right in here, you're only going to get wind gusts probably up to 30 to maybe 55 miles an hour. Not as strong, maybe even lesser than that. But if you're on the base of this, whew, you better look out. Significant extreme destruction, for sure, could occur. So don't be surprised if you drive around after this wind event. You may see the same gas station roof not torn off, but you drive 2 miles, say, northward, you might find yourself in a whole different situation with fallen trees, gas station roof completely torn off, even some weakened structures from houses could see some minor destruction as well. All right. Are there any cameras in this area? I'm sure there are, but the wind event hasn't started. And what is my day like tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow night I may do a live stream on this, but this is so synoptically. We'll see. We'll see what we can do. If there's a fire that breaks out, though, that's a different story. That's gonna be a different story. But anyways, I think that's really all I have to cover. Please be safe with this wind event. Please, please don't do barbecues outside. Cancel your party and wait for the winds to get a lot lighter, because we are in that situation that Southern California could be witnessing the strongest wind event in over 10 to 15 years. Actually, yeah, in about 14 to 15 years. All right. I think that's going to do it, folks. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to head off so I could have time to make my video on the winter storm for the Deep South, for the Eastern Seaboard. That also looks very concerning as well. 2 weather events this week happening at once. Yeah, I'm going to be busy. So please look forward to a video discussion on that nor'easter, maybe for the end of this week, into the weekend. I'll be going through a lot of details, snowfall totals, ice totals, and more. Don't miss that video. It will be out hopefully at 8 o'clock tonight Pacific Standard Time or before that, okay? Thank you all for tuning in. Share, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you back here very, very soon, okay? Share, like, and subscribe. Don't forget. Thanks for watching.